worthy of this podium, but I'll give it a shot. So, my name is Ed Brown. I've been, researching for quite a while. I've been all over the country. I've researched in 20-some states. I've researched Bigfoot, paranormal, ufology. We do it all because it's the mystery. My degree is in criminal investigation, so I have that curious mind already, and I want to use, I just find it all curious. I just want to find answers. I think that one of the biggest issues that I have found in the Bigfoot community is basically the evidence. I mean, there's great evidence out there, but there's a lot of evidence that goes out that's not, a lot of red circles and things like that on pictures and things of that nature that, I just don't necessarily agree with. But I thought what we were going to do today, and I should mention that I want to thank Todd for putting me between Dr. Pyle and Ron Moorhead, and I figured that's why he had me come on early, was so that everybody gets up at, wakes up and I can put him back to sleep so he has a nice quiet morning, But did you guys see Todd's mustache in that movie, by the way? I kept expecting it to just kind of crawl away. So actually what I want to do today is I want to just kind of tell a few encounters and stories that I've had, and then I want to make it kind of interactive. I want to hear if any of you have seen or heard or experienced is anything like what I've experienced. I don't put out very much, really ever, but I've had, I think, some really cool stuff. And in fact, I'm going to start off with a story where Dan Lindholm and myself, we were down in Southern Oregon, down by Mount McLaughlin. And this is more of a lesson, I think, than anything else. We're out there for, what was it, Dan? We went out there for like 10 days, I believe. After having a great time, doing a lot of it, we put up trail cams. We left them there for like 3 months. Got them back, got a great mountain lion on one of them, a great bear on one. We had some really cool natural pictures, from wildlife, which was awesome. We loved it. But one night, we're sitting out there at the campsite, and there was a little pond out in front of us. And I got my FLIR out, and I'm kind of looking across the pond, looking around, and I get this image that was like, you see the tree, and this image was like, it had a hand on both sides of the tree, and standing behind the tree, and was like this, watching us, right? And I start recording. I'm excited. We thought we had a great video. So we take the video, and when I get home, I'm looking at it, and I decided, Dan and I decided that what we're going to do is we're going to send this off to some people. So I sent it to like 5 different people. I know Jeff Meldrum was one, Cliff was one. I sent it to people that, that I respect. And it was funny because the responses we got was, that is a primate. There's something living there. There's something, that is an animal. To Jeff Meldrum saying, I don't know what you're looking at. What am I supposed to see here? So I was like really confused. So I called Derek Randalls, who was one of the guys who had the clip. And I'm like, Derek, man, well, what do you see there? And he says, it's a phenomenon where the heat behind where you are. And he told me, he goes, well, I said, but it disappears. Like it was there, and then a couple minutes later it was gone. What happened? And he goes, well, you moved. I'm like, no, I didn't. I was standing in the same spot. And I wasn't lying, but when I watched the film again, he's right. I noticed I did move about 6 feet over. Without even, I didn't think I did, but he was right. So when I watched it again a little more objectively, I'm like, okay. So what we ended up having was there was an opening behind the tree that went into a valley that actually collected the heat from the day and was still a little warmer than the temperature where we were. All right? So for, a couple months, we thought we had this amazing video of a Bigfoot. Just for the record, we went back out there and we did recreations. We stood there. This thing seemed to be like this tall, right? The point of the story is to say, had we just released that video, there would have been 90% of the Bigfoot community who thought, man, they got something really good, and we would have fell for it. And we truly thought we did. But it's taking the time to go back, recreate it, look at it objectively, share it with friends who you respect, who are, very influential, people who know, look at it maybe with a little different view. It's so important, Has anyone else had a FLIR image that they believe was something, and maybe they still do?
But it looked like a Sasquatch shadow walking behind. It looked very big, very tall, and everything going by. I posted up. Brett Eichenberger actually caught it and said it was an anomaly from the lens of the camera. That I was moving at the time, so it made it look like it was, a shadow movement, but it was coming from me at the time. So I went back and I panned back and I checked it out. As I panned back the other way, the shadow went the other direction. So I thought, okay, Brett's right. Thank you, Brett. But it looked really good. It looked really good. And I'm like that. When I post things up there, I don't say it's this or that. Anybody got any clues or suggestions? I don't say that it's been done by anything, but I just say, what do you think? I never put anything that's definitive unless I saw it with my own eyes. But this was just a strange thing, and I didn't pick up on it until after I got home. So I looked at it like 50 times, trying to figure, man, it sure looks like a Sasquatch walking by. Just a whole shadow going across the trees. But Brett was able to catch it. It's like, if anybody, that I'm going to trust, Brett would be the one, because he does this every day. This is what he does for a living. So he called out on it and said, no, this is what happened. You were moving, and the shadow was actually you as you're panning across and you're moving. So.
Oh, that's great, and I believe
good. It looked real good.
Exactly, because you get excited. You get excited, and you trick yourself to believe that what you're seeing or what you're experiencing is what you're there for. And that's an important thing. Boy, Todd, what'd you do here?
He was doing pirouettes.
He set me up. It's a trap.
Hey, Ed.
Yes, sir.
As a trick of the trade, if you're blessed with a thermal camera, and I've experimented with this, if you can, is change the color palettes as many times as you can. If you have the time to do it and the mindset to do it, change the color palette, because then you'll see the heat sensor from different parts of the body. I went down to the San Diego Zoo. I don't know if it's kosher or not, but I brought my therm with me, and I got
It's kosher. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
You could have a Sasquatch.
But I changed the color palettes. I found gorillas, elephants, giraffes, and it's amazing the detail, especially with AI nowadays. It's getting pretty. A lot of videos out there are getting pretty good. But if you change the color palette and zoom in, zoom out, adjust the focus. Sarah and Jonathan Brown got a really good. Well, Jonathan did down in the Chehalis Reservation, a really good video. I believe it's a Sasquatch, no doubt about it, with one of our units. And had they just zoomed in and adjusted the contrast and changed the color palettes up, it would have been no question whatsoever. But just one of those things, if you have the mindset and the capability, change that color palette.
Was that the Grays Harbor?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been there. I went there, and I spent the night with John and Sarah Brown, and no relation, by the way. But, man, what great hosts. I love those guys. They were great. And, I got to stand right where that thing was standing, and what you don't know is how steep that hill is behind there, because in order for something to have been standing there, it had to have been 9 feet, 10 feet tall. I mean, to me, that's bigger than what I would think they would be. But wow, I mean, it was really cool, and it was and what a great people, love them to death. But that's a great point what you mentioned too. You know, just take your time. You got your evidence, but is it evidence?
Yeah,
you know,
sort it out to the community, you know, because there's going to be somebody who's experienced.
Yeah,
figure it out.
And I think that's kind of my point, is not necessarily the community, but to your friends. You know, send them to people that you trust. So because let's be honest, the community can be rather cruel, right?
Yes.
And they're very if something doesn't fit one person's mindset, then you're the bad guy. You know what I mean? So, and I love everybody, don't get me wrong. I think, you know, there's a lot of great researchers who research. I think every aspect of Bigfooting, no matter what you personally believe, I think everything deserves the research. I think everything deserves to be looked at. Even if I don't agree with it, it would be, I don't know, rude of me to say, well, that's not true because I don't believe in that. You know, I think everything, I'm not going to go out and research, you know, I don't know, the aliens who drop off Bigfoot and things like that. But a flesh and blood creature who's walking through the woods, yeah, I'm going to go wherever I need to and enjoy it, you know. And Dan mentioned here a minute ago, he was talking about, you know, doing the comparison. And I would definitely urge everybody at some point while you're here to get with Dan to find that picture. Dan has the best, go back and take another picture, you know, another day, same time, everything else I've ever seen. He's got, and I'm just going to, is it okay if I describe the picture?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So Dan was down in, I think, the same area, I believe, right? Was it down in Mount McLaughlin?
It was kind of near Klamath Falls, more east, a little bit east of Mount McLaughlin.
Gotcha. So Dan's out doing some research. I wasn't with him, which is probably why he got something. But he got a picture of a silhouette of a something standing in this right next to this tree. And the interesting thing about the picture with the silhouette in it, the one detail that really sticks out is there's a vine that comes down beside the tree. And it's in the picture, it's about that far away from the tree. But when it gets to the silhouette, the vine comes down, turns and goes against the tree because this thing is against it. All right? So it was a pretty cool detail. Then when he goes back, he looks at it, you know, and he's right. It could have been anything. You know, he did the right thing. He goes back the same time of the day. He takes another picture from the exact same spot. And now that figure is not there. And the vine is going straight down. The vine doesn't move. So not only do you no longer have the silhouette of whatever that was, the area is different. The vine no longer turns and pressed against the tree. The vine now hangs straight down. So I thought that's one of my favorite comparison videos or pictures ever.
Yeah, Todd actually taught me that lesson. My last sighting was an hour and a half long. I was eyes on, and I was actually able to even cut the pictures up. So I posted them up, and Todd chimes back in. Did you take an after shot? That way you're looking, you know you're not looking at stuff squatch. So I was in the middle of making dinner. I just got back from up there, started dinner, turned everything off after Todd chimed in, drove all the way back up to my research area, and took a picture and drove all the way back home and posted it. All I hear from Todd is, good job.
Absolutely.
That was kind of an expensive day to take a lot of time. Dinner was late. But I went up and took it just to show that there's no stuff squat, there's nothing there in that spot. So I have pictures of, you know, with the ground and low. So between the two, you're not going to get a print of it. But you can see the impression.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many stump swatches out there. I've seen some stumps that really look good.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And then you walk up to them and go, that's a stump. Bam!
Yeah. The stuff is still there the next day.
Absolutely.
You know, it's right. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. And I it's funny because you mentioned Jonathan and Sarah Brown's property. My next story, I could go either way because I've actually had it happen twice. Once, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it that way. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to now because it's kind of, you know, like, thanks for the segue. And so I'm out at Jonathan and Sarah Brown's property, and we're that amazing video. And I'm with you. I know people say it's cows, pile of rocks, crows, whatever. I'm telling you, I don't know what it is, but it was really compelling, especially when you're there on the property and you see with your own eyes everything. But I'm there, and we're out there one night, and Jonathan is on my right, and he's got a gun. I'm in the middle, I have a flashlight. Sarah is to my left, and she has a flashlight. And to this day, I still have no idea what this is. I've had it happen twice. Once down by Mount McGoffin, that night we were talking about the FLIR, not that FLIR, but a different FLIR. Anyway, and then we're standing there, and from our left, from in the woods, the only way I can describe it is when I looked up, I 100% expected to see a moose coming through there, or an elk, or something coming through the woods. That's what I thought. It was loud, it was aggressive, it was limp. I didn't hear the animal, I didn't hear what was causing it, let's be fair, but I did hear the brush, the limbs breaking. I mean, whatever it was coming like really fast, really hard. And I know Sarah grabbed my arm. I probably still have fingernail marks in my arm from her. We both pull around with the flashlight as Jonathan comes around with the gun, and there's nothing there. Nothing. I still have no idea what that was. Has anyone ever experienced I call it the bluff charge. I don't know. But has anyone else had that experience?
It sounds like a freight train.
Oh, okay. Tell me about it.
I was up by Hooper Reservation, Southern California, and there were some Indians up there. So I was walking through the woods up there, and this thing came towards, it's like brush, everything. You see the trees moving, and all of a sudden it stopped. But then I was probably 50 foot maybe from tree line, and it just stopped. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I made the same observation. Both times it happened to me, I described it as whatever it was stopped just before it was through that layer of trees where you can see it. It's the woods have, when you look into the trees, you can see past the first couple trees, and then maybe a little bit past the next set of trees, and a little. Once it gets to a point where you could have seen it, it stops. So and again, I don't know what it is. Who else had that experience? I saw a couple hands. Now, so it's really cool to have that, collaboration and get it. It smells. What was yours?
I was up by where Dr. Pyle had his area, and something came running through the woods and stopped. It was really, really loud, but after doing a little bit of investigation, I was able to figure out it was an elk, a lone elk.
Oh, so you were able to find out what it was.
Yes. I was going to sit there and be by myself.
Interestingly enough, and just to be 100% transparent, at Jonathan and Sarah Brown's property, there was a giant limb on the ground, but we don't know if that fell then, and that was the next day when we looked at it. So in that specific incident, it could have been that limb fell. Although they're pretty sure that limb was already down, but we don't know. The one in Oregon, when it happened there in down by Klamath Falls, or not, well, close enough. We went back the next day and looked, and there was no broken branches, no footprints, no nothing. There was no evidence, and that story was actually kind of neat, because the night the one in Oregon happened, there was I won't bore you with the whole story, but I had gotten something on FLIR. I got a little image on FLIR, and I had asked a guy who was there filming us, a documentary guy, and I asked him, I said, here, you hold the FLIR and keep it in the vision, and I'm going to walk that way. Now, I had no gun, no flashlight, no nothing. Just asked him, just tell me, go left, go right, go straight. You just direct me with the radio. All I had was a walkie-talkie. And I started going in there, and in the middle of the woods, there was this opening, probably a 50-foot, diameter opening inside the woods of just nothing but just grass. And when I stepped in, and this was like 1 o'clock in the morning, I guess. But when I stepped in, I heard this whistle. It was almost like a bird whistled at me, And I was like, whoa, and I kind of stepped back. So I stepped back in, it whistled again, and I stepped back. And this happened a few times. I finally got on the radio and I said, because I told them as it happened, but I said, even if it whistles this time, I'm going to go in and just see what happens. So I took the step, the whistle happened again. I walked on into the circle, and it was just 30 seconds later that whatever it was again from the left sounded like a freight train coming through the woods. I mean, branches breaking. It was. I mean, I literally just turned and went like this. It's like, I know I'm going to die, but I'm, it's over. It's just scary. Yes, sir.
This wouldn't come from the whistle, but both black bears and grizzly bears are very well known for bluff charges, especially in open ground, but perhaps in the brush too. Of course, there are no grizzlies up near Aberdeen.
We did get a
But there
nice
are plenty of
cinnamon.
black bears up there.
Yes, we did catch a nice big cinnamon black bear on trail cam on that same trip. Was that the same trip, I think?
No, that was just our trail cam project. It was part of that,
But in the same area for sure.
Yeah.
There are bears out there. I found it odd that if a bear's, I guess they could have seen me better than I would have seen them, I guess. But being where I was with so much foliage and really hidden from their view, I wouldn't have expected it under that condition, but it's very possible, absolutely.
They can operate too on scent.
Yeah.
They don't need to see you, and also sound. They're better at hearing. So I'm not suggesting that you did see a bear or the effects of a bear, but it does suggest itself as an element of suspicion.
Absolutely. And when bears charge, I think they also huff and puff. And
That's true.
And I did not hear. I'm not saying they didn't. If it was a bear, I'm not insinuating that it couldn't have been a bear. I'm just saying I didn't hear that.
Right.
But
That's a good point.
But the limbs and everything else was definitely loud and crushing. I mean, it's intimidating. It's scary.
Ed,
Yes, sir.
can you please tell them how the cameraman handled the situation?
Yeah, sure. So we had, what I'm just gonna call it like it was. We had a professional cameraman with us. Wanted to follow us along and film our adventure and see kind of what happened. Giving the camera. When I'm going out, he's telling me on the radio, by the way, go left just a few feet. All right, go right. Now just go straight, because we're trying to follow this little image on the FLIR. So the idea was, and I told him, I said, I want to go walking towards it. When it leaves, maybe we can get the whole thing, and let's see what it is. It could have been a squirrel for all I know. So I get out to the middle, all the other stuff happens, the charge happens. I get on the radio, Dan, I need light. Dan comes all the way out there with me with a cell phone, with just the light on a cell phone, which died. So that didn't help. Thanks, Dan. We get back and I'm thinking, well, you know what? I bet we got something on film. I'm excited still, I had this great experience of, we got guy filming it, a professional documentary guy making a professional film. When I start watching it, about 30 seconds after I left the camp, he got scared and went in the truck. He was sitting in the truck. The entire footage was of the vent with the heater vent. Yeah. Jill, Brent, are you guys interested in a job? We need a new guy. So yes, that was, but again, it adds to the fun and the adventures you have while you're out. It's always fun. So my next story is actually a story from Alabama. I was not too far from Tuscaloosa. I was at a lady's property who felt that Bigfoot was like climbing trees and jumping on the roof and you know, just the Bigfoot were out of control. Basically, she needed an exterminator, I guess. So we go there, and, you know, we had a good time. I went with Adam Davis and a gentleman named Jason. I cannot remember his last name. I know he's not here, so. But anyway, it was a great time. I had a great time. Well, the homeowner, she had a couple of her friends came over to hang out with us. You know, they wanted to investigate. You know, a couple of young ladies. They were great people. One of them, her name was Diane. I remember that she was about this tall, and I'm not kidding. She was about this tall, weighed maybe 65 pounds when she gets out of the shower. You know, I mean, she was really small, tiny. But man, let me tell you, that woman was a tank. Man, if she saw something, it didn't matter where she was going, what it was, what she had to, she gone. So we're walking down this home. The home is kind of off in the middle of the woods. It's kind of back, and there's a small road that leads back. Never any traffic. I think we were there for 5 or 6 days, I guess, and I probably, besides us, I probably saw 3 cars go down the road the whole time. All right, so it's very secluded.
Where was this?
This was near Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And we're walking down this road. There's 5 of us. And I mentioned how Diane was. She had sworn that in the woods she saw what she interpreted as moonlight reflecting off of fur. So she didn't say, she just said, "I see moonlight off fur." She was gone right in the woods by herself. We're all looking at each other, and Jason goes, "I'll go with her." So he goes in. Great. We're standing out there just kind of, you know, chit-chatting. Adam and the other girl and myself. The other girl ended up passing away, so I don't want to say her name. You know, I just have respect. She was awesome. She was amazing as well. But she sees something in the woods. She's like down on the ground. She's looking underneath the trees, and she thought she saw feet walk by. So she wants to go in. I told Adam, I said, "Well, it's my turn." You know, so I go in with her. Now we're in there about 15, 20 minutes, I guess, looking around. We never saw anything, but we're in there for quite a while. And when we came out, everybody was gone. Nobody was there. But we saw a flashlight, like way down the road. Way down the road, there was a flashlight. And I told her, I said, "Well, that's Adam. Diane and Jason are probably still in the woods," because we did hear movement in the woods, so we assumed it was them. So I said, "Well, why don't we go down with Adam, and then, you know, let's find out where they are first." So I said, "I'm just going to yell roll call, so that, you know, when they respond, then they, you know, we'll know where they are." And that's kind of everybody knows when you hear roll call, "Here, I'm here," you know. So I yell roll call. Immediately we get it. The only discrepancy was she heard "yeah" and I heard "here," you know, that type of thing. So we get the response. We go walking down the road towards Adam. We start walking that way, and the flashlight starts coming towards us. And it was Diane. So I'm like, "Wait a minute. Where's Adam? He must be the one back in the woods." And she says, "No, Adam's back here." So Adam and Jason were down the road with her. Nobody was in the woods. So we actually had, Jason had this recorder that was amazing. It was like on this pole about 15 feet in the air, and it picked up 360 degrees, which was really the only negative side to it, because you could never tell where anything came from when you listen to the audio. But it picked up stuff that was amazing. So I was like, "Man, I wonder if we got that response." And sure enough, we did. So I'm all excited. I actually sent the audio to David Ellis. I think I was talking earlier about David. But David, great guy up in, works with the Olympic Project up in Washington. Love the guy to death. He took it and he amplified it and cleaned it up and did it. And there is a definite response. But what we missed was what we didn't hear, and I think that was because of the way the microphone worked. Right after the roll call, right after the response, there was a very definitive most likely from the opposite direction, was a very crystal clear whoop. Just one. You know, and I thought, oh my God, we didn't even hear that, you know? So on that same audio, not only do we get the response from my roll call, we also got the, you know, the whoop sound. And that was pretty cool. And I do have a video, an audio. Actually, I'm going to play for you. You guys want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is from the same place. And before I play this, I want to be crystal clear and transparent. Adam sent this audio to a professor in Canada. I don't know his name. I don't know who he was personally. Adam apparently knew him. And they said that the audio is coyotes. Okay? And they're probably right. That's why it was never released. That's why I never put it out. Because there's a discrepancy. You know, I don't know. Maybe it is coyotes. However, you can hear coyotes in this audio, but it's a lot different. So I'm going to play the audio for you real quick. Hold on. I think this is the first time I've ever, in a presentation, played this audio. Is it coming through?
Yeah.
So that was recorded at the same location, and it you know, I'm not an expert on audio. I'm not really an expert on anything. I just have fun doing it. But I hear the coyotes, and in one of them I even hear a coyote kind of going off at the exact same time. It sounds different to me. I'm open to it being coyotes, but I think it's not. But it is interesting. You know, I find it interesting. So that was pretty cool. Anybody ever have any kind of, like, besides Ron? I know Ron's got all kinds of wonderful audio.
Well, I've had 3 major auditory encounters. I'm pretty conversant with the repertories of Washington birds and mammals. And I've had 3 experiences that do not match any of them. That do match, some are Ron sounds, and as I mentioned last night, the Quileute recordings from LaPush. None of them, I think, could have been conflated with coyote or elk or cougar or any of the animals I know, certainly not any of the owls. The sounds you just played sound odd to me for coyote, but not out of the question for coyote. Within their vocal range, I hear coyotes most nights. In lots of places, most of us do. But, and they've got a very wide repertoire, but those are unusual ones. My sounds that I've heard have mostly consisted of whistles and cries and some chatter, and a strange metallic sound. Once up at Cultus Lake, named that for a reason, when the Klickitats abandoned it in the early 20th century for the abundance of encounters with Bigfoot, say latex, as they call it. And that sound that I heard there in one other place that I can't account for otherwise, sounds as if you're taking a very slim, very thin sheet of corrugated metal and whapping it like this. You know,
Wow, yeah.
but a thin one. And I've not heard that anywhere else in nature, but twice near Cultus Lake and in one other place in the Dark Divide. So there's a great range of sounds we may hear. But that leads into a question I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
That gets to the heart of your talk, I think. What would you say are your top criteria for reliability in evidence?
That's a really good question. I think my top criteria would be, number one, like, for example, with that audio, I'm open to it being coyote because there's obviously coyote in it. I do think that those 3 long howls were deeper and longer than the lung capacity of a coyote, I would think, I'm not an expert, but that's what I would think. And we sent it to an expert who said I was wrong.
I'm thinking for all the things you're talking about, sound, bluff charges, whatever. What in principle, what do you ask about a particular experience to say, this seems as if it might be credible? In Peter Burns' terms, when in doubt, throw it out.
Right.
What takes you over the threshold of when in doubt, throw it out?
Sure, I think when you can recreate, when you can go to the same place and have the same, the same experience, or you can, not just there but anywhere else. When you can duplicate an experience that you can't prove one way or the other, or then it deserves that extra special attention. Whether I'm right or wrong, to me, is completely irrelevant. I don't care if I'm wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. What I don't want to do is I don't want to put something out and then somebody else tell me I'm wrong. I'd rather tell myself I'm wrong. Exactly. So I hope that answered that question.
That's a very good one, yeah. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to say the Cornell University Mulcahy Library of Animal Sounds, which are all verified, generally taken by graduate students or PhDs. They've got very similar, they've got long coyote repertoires. That was very interesting what I heard there, like Dr. Pyle said. But when in doubt, listen to that, listen to those things, and you can find out a lot of noises. Like we have 9 different kinds of owls in these woods right here. They all make different kinds of sounds. Elk make tons of different sounds.
Sure. That's a good point. And with wood knocking, we have 6 or 8 species of woodpeckers here too. How many of you heard the very prominent wood knocking this morning in the tent camping area? Anybody else hear those but me?
Yep.
Do you know what species it was?
Nope.
It was pileated, that's right. Too loud, too deep for flicker.
Cause they're good sized critters.
And the calls too were pileated, which
Yeah.
can be taken for flicker.
And those, on those as well, they're very deep in head.
That's right.
Because
Now, I
it's
cannot
a big,
tell you-
strong animal.
And I cannot tell you how many times those have been reported as wood knockings.
Yeah, I can actually hear the difference in those.
Yeah.
That's great. And thank you for the advice, by the way. Go ahead. Yes.
Mr. Brown, can I interject one more?
Of course, yeah.
An acquaintance of mine who was an archer, he also says that wood snaps late in the day or early in the morning can cause by trees heating up and making vibrations. That's mainly in archery that they hear this. And Woody Woodward, who is an accomplished archer, he mentions the same thing. Be very suspect of wood knocks late after sunset, right after sunset, or early in the morning when things are warming up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I was in California one time, and I had heard some interesting wood knocks that I was kind of curious about. And when I got into it and started looking at it, what it actually was the trees were so thin and so tall that when the wind was blowing up there at the top, they were smacking against each other. So I just gave up on wood knocks pretty much altogether in that area anyway. Because of that, I'm like, okay, well, anything I hear now is subset. Yeah, whatever.
And sometimes what it is as they're moving is the between the rings, they'll make a snapping sound.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I do Bentwood furniture, so I know about bending wood and all that stuff.
Right.
How everything slips on swing.
Sure. I will say real quick that with the howls that I just shared, I did, while Adam did send it to a professor in Canada, I also sent that audio to David Ellis, and David Ellis did exactly that. He compared it and did it, and he said that he didn't believe it was coyotes. But again, he wasn't giving a professional answer. He was just giving his opinion, which I respect. So, yeah, sir.
Yeah, so what David Ellis does is he throws on a spectrograph
Yeah,
So we
thank you,
visually, because everything's got a fingerprint. So if you can visually look at, our ears will play tricks on us, but you can visually compare it to as Joe said, the Cornell Library of Sound. They have visual spectrographs on there that you can visually look at it and see what hertz range it falls in, the length, the speed. And so what David Ellis does, and I play with it, is visually compare it to known animals. And if you can visually compare it to known animals and rule that out, then you have something that's suspect. And so what I love about percussive sound specifically is if you can record, so you get a knock, but you get a vocal along with that, say it's a whoop or a yell, now you have something that may tie in with that, not just your average bam in the woods, you know?
Well, and in this case, I did. It was coyotes and whatever that howl was, you know. And again, I'm not saying that it wasn't coyotes. I'm not making that claim. I never released that audio or anything like that. That's just because someone said it's coyotes, a professor. I was like, well, I'm not going to release it, you know. So that's just, I think that's what you should do with your evidence. You should be critical of it yourself. I know Todd's probably going to come back and run me off here in a minute. I got to tell you guys, I'm having a great time, by the way. And I do appreciate everybody, you guys helping out and kind of talking about what you've experienced, because I think that's what Beachfoot really is. Beachfoot is about getting together and talking about our experiences and having fun and getting to know everybody. I got to see some old friends. Ron Moret, I haven't seen, where's Ron? There he is back there. I haven't seen Ron in forever. You know, Jerry Hine, holy cow, I almost cursed there. Holy cow, I didn't even recognize him. He came up and said, yeah, and he gave me a hug, and I'm like, hey, nice to see you. Then I hear later it's Jerry Hahn. I'm like, what? So, you know, he just changed. I haven't seen him in years. But I've seen so many old friends that I haven't seen in forever, and I've made new friends, and we've talked, and we've had a great time, and I appreciate that. But I'm only going to give one more story real quick, and this one was interesting, and Dan doesn't even know I'm going to talk about this one. So this was again by Mount McGoffin, and we were at the campsite. We'd gone there, gosh, we've been there so many times, I guess. I don't know, I've been there with you 10, 12 times, I'm assuming. And I don't remember the time of the year this was, to be honest with you, but I remember we were in our camp, and there was a little road that kind of comes down to where we camped, just a little gravel road. It goes up about a mile and a half. If you call that road 12 o'clock, hypothetically, at about the 1:30 or 2 o'clock angle, we got this crazy vocal. And it was something like, and don't laugh at me, I'm not a vocal guy, but it was something like, and it was like, again, it was about a mile away. It was really loud. We're both like, what the hell was that? You know, then from the 10 o'clock position, I look at Dan and I go, dude, we got recorders out. We're going to catch that. Whatever that is, we're going to get that on recording. That is awesome. And this goes back and forth, what, 6, 7 times, probably? There was some communication going on out there with something. And whatever it was really interesting. The next day, we go out, we get the recorders, we're excited, we start listening to the recorders. Nothing there. It was so loud. Like, dude, did you hit record? You know, we got in an argument about it. Like, no. Not really, of course. But it was, I still say it's Dan's fault. You know, he can have his own presentation and say it's mine. Yes, sir.
Kathy there and I last year at Beachfoot on our Friday night there, we got the same kind of call twice. We're sitting there laughing because we knew it was. And it started out like a barn owl, right, Kathy? For that first one, and then it just went. We just start busting. She's like 75 yards from me, and I see her laughing. I'm laughing. Then about probably 30, 45 seconds later, the second one came in. It didn't even try the owl part.
So how was my imitation then?
Yeah, it was just.
Yours is probably here. Do it again.
We're just busted up laughing.
Do it again on this thing.
All right, yeah, it was insane. It was funny as hell, though. We thought it was hilarious.
No, it's awesome. No, and it's funny because, and kind of one of the things that makes this specific presentation interesting is the fact that there's so many different things. You know, it's not just a howl. It's not just a wood knock. It's not just chatter. It's not just, you know, a FLIR image of heat coming through the trees. You know, there's so many different things that you can pick up on. And I tell people all the time, and it's just advice. You know, I'm not telling anybody how to research. I think everything needs to be researched, regardless of what it is. But follow your evidence. You know, if you go out and you're looking for, I don't know, hypothetically, you go out looking for, okay, a perfect example. You go out looking for Bigfoot. But then you see a little light in the woods. You know, then your mind goes, well, there's, you know, Bigfoot's a ghost, right? Just because you see something when you're looking for something else doesn't mean that has anything to do with what you're looking for. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Not everything is Bigfoot.
Exactly. Not everything is Bigfoot. And that's another really good point, because I do tell people all the time, Bigfoot, when you go out looking for Bigfoot, make the research secondary. My God, you're in beautiful locations. You've got the woods, lakes, rivers, the animals, the birds, beautiful, beautiful nature. Make that number one. Enjoy where you are. Then, if something happens, check it out. We've been out and nothing happened, but by God, we had a great time.
Yep.
We had fun. We hiked around. He more than me. That guy can walk for. I jokingly tell everybody, you could put him in Washington and tell him, meet me in San Diego next week, and I'm driving. And he'll be there next week. That guy just walks and walks and walks. It's like, dude, stop. I got to rest. He's inhuman. But we've had a lot of fun. Dan and I, we've been brothers from another mother for years, and I definitely appreciate everything that he's taught me so much. He has. And hopefully I've taught him some things. I don't know.
Of what not to do?
Yeah. Thus, this presentation, what did you don't do? But the entire thing really has to do with, you know, being critical of your own evidence first, right? We can prove we are wrong. We can't prove we are right, okay? We want to. That's our goal. That's what we want to do. Until we can get some help from Darby, and you know, and Darby's great, by the way. We've had so many conversations since we've been here, and he's already like put me in my place a couple times. I love it. Thank you, Darby. I can't wait to hear him talk tonight. That's going to be awesome. So, in closing, guys, listen, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank everybody for listening and enjoying, you know, let me enjoy this. You guys, for participation, I definitely appreciate it. And just remember, be critical of your own evidence first before somebody else is. So, thank you.